Okay, let's unpack this. Today we are diving deep into a really remarkable set of source materials.
Yes, and they're not what you'd typically expect.
No, not at all. We're
Mhm.
looking at the research notes of two, I'd say, exceptionally curious students, Kesser and Steen.
Right, and they've taken on this school project for their nature and innovation class.
And it's focused on a major land use conflict happening right in their local area. But this isn't just a report, you know?
No,
Eh,
it's more like an investigation. And it's all framed by this startling and frankly incredibly insightful cultural metaphor.
It really is.
What makes this source material just so compelling is that these students, they didn't just, document the facts of habitat destruction.
Which would have been interesting enough.
Oh, absolutely. But they went further. They provided this brilliant conceptual framework for really understanding the disconnect that's driving the whole conflict.
And what is that disconnect?
Well, it's the friction between sort of existing environmental knowledge and a very, very specific type of new resident moving into the area.
And they weren't just sitting in a classroom doing this research. That's a key point. They were out in the field.
You can feel it in their note.
You really can.
Yeah.
We know they embody this spirit of hands-on inquiry. They were recently at Fasilov, and that's the Danish carnival.
Right.
And they were dressed in full khaki safari gear, channeling their inner explorers.
Leaning into that whole Indiana Jones vibe.
Totally. And that adventurous, get your hands dirty approach is so critical because it tells us something important.
It tells us they are deeply personally invested in the physical reality of the landscape they're studying,
So that investment, it focuses them entirely on the core conflict.
which is this continuous and it seems like accelerating push to clear local established woods to make way for new housing.
It's a scenario you see everywhere, right?
Yeah.
All over the world.
It's a very common story, yes. But Kesser and Steen, they view it not as a simple, economic necessity. For them, it's an existential threat to their community's natural identity.
And their guiding philosophy for the entire project is, well, it's powerful and beautifully simple.
Alt er forbunde.
Everything is connected.
Exactly. And that motto, it's not just a tagline, it dictates their whole methodology.
It forces them to look beyond the immediate problem.
It mandates that they cannot simply focus on the specific patch of forest that's being bulldozed. They have to analyze the entire surrounding ecosystem.
The stream that runs to the fjord.
The fields bordering the woods, the history of the land itself. I mean, it's a holistic environmental philosophy embedded right into their project's DNA.
And that wide-angle lens is what allows them to move beyond just, documenting destruction.
It lets them get into diagnosing the cultural root cause. And this is where their analysis really transcends a typical environmental critique.
It's where they get to the people involved.
Yeah. Right. To understand the new residents, the people moving into these new subdivisions, they deploy a metaphor that is both hilarious and, I have to say, profoundly accurate.
We have to thank Steen for this stroke of genius.
It seems like it was his idea.
He's clearly a dedicated viewer of the Hulu animated series Solar Opposites.
Oh, okay.
For anyone who doesn't know the show, it revolves around this alien family who crash lands on Earth.
Yeah.
They view our entire planet as a terrible, dirty, chaotic place that they are utterly stuck on.
And Steen uses this as an analogy.
For the newcomers, the
Yeah.
first movers who are part of what the notes call the bandwagon to get, the bandwagon train,
Yeah.
moving into this pristine suburban dream. They are, in his view, the newly stranded aliens.
Wow. Okay, and that metaphor, it works on so many levels.
It really does.
These newcomers, they're disconnected from the local hood, as the notes say. They lack any immediate, innate understanding of the terrain.
Or the local history, or the established social patterns.
Or the existing ecosystem they've just landed in. They arrive with expectations formed somewhere else entirely.
And Earth, or in this case, the rural Danish landscape, is failing to meet those expectations.
It's not what was in the brochure.
Not at all. And Steen captures this core alien frustration perfectly by quoting directly from the series.
What's the quote?
"We have been stranded here in this shithole for a year now."
That really encapsulates it, that feeling of imposed exile and dissatisfaction with an environment that doesn't cater to their immediate needs or comfort.
It's an attitude of, ownership without any stewardship.
That's a great way to put it. And what's fascinating here is how Steen links that bigger, overarching alienation to very specific vulnerabilities.
Yeah, this detail is fantastic.
He humorously recounts the alien Corvo worrying about stepping on a rusty nail and getting cold gangrene.
Right, because his alien immune system isn't adapted to our simple microbial environment.
And the irony is, of course, that Corvo is part lizard and can regenerate his limbs anyway.
It's a marvelous detail. And you have to ask, why include that? What's the point he's making?
Well, I think it underscores the utter lack of practical, innate tools these new settlers possess for dealing with the messy, unpredictable realities of nature.
They're environmentally fragile.
Exactly. They are technically capable of living here. They have the houses, the cars, but they lack the fundamental environmental literacy to thrive or even safely interact with the local biological systems.
They're environmentally vulnerable, just like Corvo's unadapted alien body.
It just sets the stage perfectly. Kesser and Steen are not just observing habitat loss, they are documenting a culture clash rooted in this profound environmental illiteracy.
Viewing these new residents as completely unadapted to the planet they have chosen to colonize.
And they see the physical destruction, the bulldozers, the cleared land as a direct symptom of that intellectual and cultural disconnect.
That perfect analogy leads us directly then to the ground zero of their investigation.
The immediate conflict.
Right, the new construction and the habitat destruction. It's not some distant policy fight for them. It's an ongoing physical loss happening right in their backyard.
And the sources make it very clear this is an urgent problem. It's not something on the horizon.
No, it's now. Kesser and Steen, they've heard confirmed reports that another very large area is specifically slated to be cleared for more construction.
So it's not the first one.
No. And it's furthering the systemic trend they define as more houses and less nature. It's an exponential problem, really. Each new subdivision pushes the overall ecological balance further and further into the red.
And you can feel the emotional toll this takes on the students. It's etched right into their notes.
Oh, absolutely. Steen nearly shouts his disbelief and it's just his utter frustration. He completely rejects the mitigation efforts that the developers are proposing.
What did they propose?
Well, he cannot believe they think they could just pen up the animals.
Pen them up.
Yeah, as if it were a chicken coop. That's his phrase.
That image is incredibly potent. He's critiquing this reductionist mindset that views nature as just a set of movable parts.
Exactly. It's like Lego bricks. You can just move around.
It rejects the ecological truth that complex habitats cannot simply be transplanted or reduced to a contained, manageable resource.
Mm-hmm.
A forest isn't a chicken coop.
No.
It's a web of interdependent relationships, and destroying it in one place means the displaced species can rarely, if ever, integrate successfully somewhere else.
And Kesser, he expands on this critique. He connects the local construction boom to a much broader systemic problem that's rooted in, well, national priorities.
So he's zooming out.
He is. He notes that this pursuit of more houses and less nature seems to be the default future for their whole region. And he highlights a really crucial point.
What's that?
He says Denmark is very far behind compared to other EU countries when it comes to prioritizing conservation and environmental protection measures.
And why is that context so important for you, the listener, to understand?
Well, Kesser links it directly to agriculture. The national focus remains heavily skewed toward high agricultural production. Historically, Danish policy has often prioritized output, and by extension, the intense land use required for that output over the kind of large-scale nature conservation efforts that are mandated or at least encouraged by the EU's broader directives.
So you have this relentless double squeeze on the natural environment.
A double squeeze, that's a good way to put it.
Urbanization is taking these established natural pockets for housing developments on one side.
And then on the other side, you have industrialized, high-production agriculture degrading the overall biodiversity and water quality across these vast fields.
So it's a battle on two fronts. And nature is just retreating under constant pressure from both sides.
So to understand what is being lost, the students, they actually did research into the history of the land that's under threat.
This is where that Alter Forbundet motto really shines.
It is. They aren't just looking at random woods. The notes mention they are filming around two fascinating areas specifically. One forest grew up organically after an old colonial garden was completely abandoned, just left to its own devices.
So nature reclaimed it.
Completely.
Yeah.
And another one emerged entirely by itself after archaeologists finished their work digging up ancient Bronze Age villages.
So these details provide really profound context.
They're not state parks.
Yeah.
They're not managed forests.
No, these are wild, resilient spaces that demonstrated the environment's inherent ability to heal and sustain diverse life when human interference just stopped.
They regenerated themselves. So destroying these specific areas means destroying the proof that nature, if left alone, can reclaim and enrich the landscape.
And this brings us to the specific vulnerable victims of this construction push.
Yes, because as they surveyed that second area, the one slated for development,
The one that grew over the Bronze Age site.
that's the one. Steen specifically questioned the fate of the native orchids that fill that spot. He asks, point blank, if they must also be eradicated.
Wow, eradicated. That's a highly emotive term.
It is. It refuses to sanitize the act of destruction. It moves the whole conversation from abstract habitat loss to the deliberate, permanent removal of unique, sensitive life forms.
It makes the environmental cost intensely personal, both for the students and for the species involved.
And it naturally leads them into investigating how the system, which is supposedly designed to protect these sensitive life forms, is actually operating in practice.
Which I think takes us into the deepest part of their investigation.
It does.
We now move into the specific legal conflicts surrounding protected species, particularly those under Annex 4, and these allegations of systematic manipulation used to circumvent these powerful conservation laws.
The specific victims they list, the orchids, the water salamander, and the bats, they're all absolutely crucial because they are listed under BILAG 4.
Right. And we should probably pause and define this clearly for you, the listener. This isn't just a local zoning rule we're talking about.
No, not at all. BILAG 4 refers to the highest level of protection under the European Union's Habitats Directive.
Precisely. This directive dictates that a species or its breeding and resting sites are so vulnerable that any planned project, whether it's housing, infrastructure, whatever, it must stop if it threatens those sites.
It's supposed to be a red line.
In theory, yes. Finding a water salamander or an active bat colony in the middle of a development site should be a guaranteed project halt. Full stop.
But Kesser and Steen, they quickly spot the regulatory hypocrisy.
How so?
They reference a specific local incident. A beach cleanup was actually delayed due to bats.
Okay, so that seems like the law is working.
Right. It seemingly gave the bats this incredible high status. But then, in the very next breath, development is proceeding on land that is known to host the water salamander.
Ah, so there's an inconsistency.
A major one. Kesser asks in his note how bats suddenly achieve such a high status in one municipal decision while being entirely disregarded in another.
And that question, why is the law enforced strictly here but conveniently ignored there? That's the key insight.
That's the whole thing.
The students realized the problem wasn't the law itself, but the execution of the law when, economic pressure is applied.
And Kesser gets right to the heart of the matter with a very sharp, critical observation regarding how the required environmental surveys are conducted.
This is where their notes become genuinely critical of the system, right?
They do. Kesser alleges that developers are using tactical timing.
Tactical timing.
They perform these mandatory surveys at times when they know the protected species will simply not be present or easily detectable. It's a strategic deployment of ignorance.
We're talking about essentially legal manipulation.
That's what it sounds like.
For example, they might assess for the presence of the water salamander during the dead of winter when the amphibian is hibernating and impossible to find.
Or surveying for specific orchid varieties when they're not in bloom, so they're just indistinguishable from other green stuff on the ground.
The implication is profound. The developer isn't technically breaking the law by lying on a report.
No, they're not.
They're exploiting the seasonality of the species to produce a truthful yet misleading survey report. They can state, under oath, no protected species were found on X date.
Knowing full well that if they had waited 3 months, the finding would have been entirely different.
And this raises a critical point of friction here. Are Kesser and Steen confusing unethical behavior with criminal behavior?
It's a good question.
If the legal requirement is simply to conduct a survey, and that survey is timed perfectly to guarantee a negative finding, well, the letter of the law is technically adhered to.
But the spirit of BILAG 3
Is rendered completely meaningless. The spirit of the law protecting the most vulnerable species is just gone.
The students, by implication, they argued that this behavior is functionally equivalent to active habitat destruction because it neutralizes the highest legal protections available.
They believe the intent is malicious, regardless of the strict legality of the timing.
And they have evidence of actions they view as outright criminal, which confirms their belief that the regulatory framework is something to be, bypassed or just actively bulldozed.
Right, there's a video.
Yeah. Steen found a video that made him, in his words, highly indignant.
And what did it show?
The video showed an excavator felling a large tree full of bat nests in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night?
As Steen points out in his notes, this is dead illegal. The time of day is crucial here.
Of course. Bats are nocturnal. They're most vulnerable when they're roosting during the day.
So taking down a known nesting tree under the cover of darkness suggests a very deliberate effort to avoid detection.
And to avoid accountability for violating Annex 50 protection, it screams of an intent to deceive.
You're prioritizing speed over compliance. Why else would you risk running heavy machinery at night, in the dark, to destroy a known protected habitat?
Unless you were actively trying to avoid the scrutiny and the mandatory halt that Bylag 4 requires.
Exactly.
And Kesser links this highly suspicious bat incident to another long-standing local anecdote, something that speaks to a pattern of systemic disregard.
Yeah, this one is strange. Tree trunks that had lain near a waterhole for a decade. Logs that were becoming their own microhabitat.
Right, they'd be full of insects, fungi.
They suddenly and mysteriously burned down overnight.
It just underscores the perceived pattern. When nature is an obstacle to development, strange things happen to clear the way.
Whether it's outright illegal felling or, mysterious spontaneous combustion, the result is always the same.
The path is cleared for construction.
What stands out to me is the deep cynicism that these young students have developed about the whole regulatory environment.
You can see it building in their notes.
They started by observing habitat loss, then they progressed to documenting this strategic legal manipulation with the time surveys.
And finally, they gathered evidence of what they believe is active criminal behavior.
So they see the legal structure not as a safeguard for nature, but as a weak hurdle to be jumped or bulldozed by motivated developers.
Which means their mission has to shift. If the local authorities and the legal frameworks are either easily manipulated or actively ignored when high profits are involved,
then the students have to zoom out.
they need to understand the entire connected system of land use and prioritization. It's the only way to truly fulfill their motto.
Everything is connected.
And that zooming out takes us directly into the heart of Section 4.
This is where Kesser and Steen stop focusing solely on the subdivision and start to analyze the total human footprint across the entire landscape.
Right, the agricultural fields and the new forms of energy production.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They recognize that while the urban sprawl is gobbling up chunks of nature, traditional farming methods are equally, if not more, impactful on the overall ecosystem health.
They note that the intensive way fields are cultivated has this massive impact on everything.
The stream carrying runoff to the fjord, the adjacent forests, the surrounding biodiversity, it's all affected.
And this circles back to Kesser's earlier point about national prioritization.
It does. That intense focus on high production means massive amounts of nutrients, fertilizers, and pesticides are constantly washing off those fields.
Which destabilizes the aquatic ecosystems downstream.
You get issues like eutrophication in the fjord. And the intensive use of the fields just eliminates the natural habitats that might otherwise exist in fallow areas or along field borders.
It's an environmental desert created by efficiency.
So they see the total land use as this continuous threat, whether it's a field growing grain or a field growing houses. But the sources introduce a significant and complex modern shift.
Yes, the conversion of agricultural land for large-scale energy production.
This is the rise of the iron fields, or jernmarker.
Jernmarker, we should probably explain that term. It translates literally to iron fields.
It's a great name for them. These are massive solar cell parks, huge industrial arrays of panels being installed directly on what was previously productive agricultural land.
It's a dramatic shift. The land is taken entirely out of food production. You're swapping the cultivation of grain for the production of gigawatts.
This is a critical point of analysis for the students. They reference an analogy they found in the sources.
The one from Texas.
Yeah, Texas farmers who say, "We grow wind."
And this is about the farmers who invested in thousands of wind turbines placed across their landscape.
So why is that relevant?
Well, because typically wind turbines occupy only small physical footprints. The farmers can still farm, they can still graze or harvest beneath and around them. It is shared use.
But Kesser and Steen, they're incredibly critical of the design choices being made in Denmark for these iron fields.
What's the problem?
The solar panels are installed directly on the ground, low and dense without being raised high enough.
And that crucial design flaw, they observe, eliminates any opportunity for dual use.
If the panels were raised, what could you do?
Well, you might still allow grazing animals beneath them, or allow certain native plants to grow, promoting biodiversity or soil health, but installed low and close like that.
The solar panels create a permanent shade barrier and an industrial landscape. It's total land conversion, not shared use.
You're effectively turning fertile ground into a man-made desert covered in infrastructure.
So now the local landscape is shrinking under the pressure of three demands.
Urbanization for housing.
Industrialized agriculture degrading the remaining areas.
And now energy production locking up vast fields into these solar arrays.
The students are just witnessing their environment becoming smaller and functionally inaccessible for nature with every single passing year.
And this systemic change also impacts the very culture of land management.
Yes, the students observe how modern practices have replaced centuries of traditional knowledge.
They note the sheep, for example, grazing alone with their lambs, almost appearing wild.
Yet they are contained, not by human herders, but by technology.
It's the absence of the shepherd, replaced by steel wire fences.
They even have a local reference to a steel wire man, personifying this shift from active, knowledgeable land stewardship
Where a shepherd knew the land, the stream, the needs of the ecosystem.
to passive mechanized containment, where the land is simply boxed in.
And that loss of traditional human management is profound. The whole knowledge base is eroding.
Steen learned a small, but I think really impactful, fun fact during his research.
Was it?
The word Schäfer, German shepherd, literally just means shepherd dog.
Right.
He previously thought the word only meant police dog or guard dog, which is a perfect reflection of the urban industrialized view of the animal.
That detail is a brilliant stand-in for the broader cultural shift.
It is.
For the city dweller, a Schäfer is a tool of order and control. For the historically informed or rural population, it's a working partner tied to managing the living, moving landscape.
The gulf in knowledge between those who understand the roots of the words and those who only know the modern application is just massive.
And it mirrors the gap between the new residents and the old hood.
Thankfully, amid all this discussion of encroachment and the disappearance of the wild, their notes do include one welcome assurance.
What's that?
There are no real wolves in their specific area.
Well, that's something. But the environmental pressure from development and intensive land use, the iron fields, the expanding subdivisions, that is perhaps a more immediate and systemic predator than any wolf could be.
It's a pressure that is far more difficult to contain with a steel wire fence.
And all of the evidence Kesser and Steen have collected, habitat destruction, the manipulation of Bilag 3, the conversion of fields to solar parks, it all brings them full circle.
Right back to their central thesis.
The massive environmental disconnect that defines this new settler population.
And this is where the solar opposites alien metaphor becomes not just observational anymore. It becomes the foundation for the proposed solution.
They are observing a fundamental failure of perception and connection among the new residents.
Steen observes that the city people are more connected with their iPhone than the physical reality around them.
Their entire relationship to the world is mediated through a digital screen, not through sensory engagement with the environment.
He makes a joke that they wouldn't even notice if their coffee was made with dishwater.
It's crude, but it's wonderfully illustrative. It's saying they lack sensory awareness. They're environmentally numb.
They consume the environment, the house, the garden, the promised view, without the capacity to process the sensory inputs or understand the ecological outputs.
And Kesser reinforces this diagnosis of environmental illiteracy by noting the lack of basic navigational skill.
Yeah, this is a great point. Newcomers can only find their way in the woods if there are yellow spots on the trees.
A marked color-coded trail, or relying on GPS.
And he states they're in an unlucky and unfair situation for 900 million in the Western world. So this moves their observation beyond just a local critique.
He's suggesting that this environmental dependence on external guidance is a systemic failing of modern urban life.
And the implication for you, the listener, is kind of chilling.
It is. If you cannot navigate the physical world without digital or color-coded assistance, how can you possibly navigate the complex ethical responsibility of being a land steward?
You're physically present, but culturally you're completely absent.
And this cultural absence translates directly into specific behaviors that disrupt the existing community and demonstrate a mindset of consumption and entitlement.
The alien mindset arrives with a specific set of urban expectations.
The notes mention the bandwagon effect brings people looking for glow.
Looky-loo dinner.
Right, meaning they are there for the superficial spectacle of nature and the lifestyle, not for genuine integration into the community or the ecosystem.
And the most universal complaint they documented is simple, practical, and highly illustrative of this clash.
What is it?
The newcomers park their cars thoughtlessly on the road, preventing the street sweeper from getting around town.
It's a perfect minor microcosm of the major problem.
It really is.
They prioritize their immediate convenience parking close to home over the municipal function and the established social order of the community.
They are settlers from a foreign place, the city, who have yet to adapt their customs to the hood they have landed in. It demonstrates a profound lack of spatial and community awareness.
So the students ask, how do we force adaptation?
And this is where they get to their big idea. Inspired by an old industry requirement where people needed a PC driver's license to prove basic computer competency.
Right, I remember those.
Kesser and Steen proposed their ultimate solution for the newcomers: the Nature driver's license.
This is a brilliant conceptual pivot.
Oh, fantastic.
The premise is, if you require certification to operate a complex machine like a computer, shouldn't you require some basic foundational knowledge and cultural competence to inhabit and influence a complex living ecosystem?
They suggest something like a mandated summer course, Nature for Beginners, for anyone moving into these newly cleared subdivisions.
The idea isn't punitive, it's educational.
Exactly. It forces an understanding of the local environment before the new residents can fully impose their previous environmentally ignorant lifestyle on the landscape.
And Kesser takes the idea even further. He's joking about specialized modules in the curriculum that reflect the practical, messy reality they're observing.
He suggests course titles like How to Make Nutrient Salt Spray for Your Foot Warts with Herbs from the Outer Limits Forest,
Okay.
and the highly practical skill of making cider from crap apples.
These aren't just silly jokes, though. They underscore the core practical knowledge that has been lost.
That's the point.
The ability to identify and interact with the common, wild, and non-curated elements of nature for survival, for health, or for consumption. They are advocating for a return to practical literacy, not just theoretical appreciation.
They're basically saying, stop looking for the yellow spots on the trees and learn how the trees interact with the water salamander's breeding pond.
Stop worrying about your clean, controlled suburb and learn to appreciate the crap apples and the messiness that sustains the whole ecosystem.
And this desire for control and a clean, manufactured reality is why they return one last time to the solar opposites theme.
To illustrate the alien frustration when reality doesn't match their expectations.
Exactly. Corvo, the highly frustrated alien, discovers that the children's TV jokester, Fun Bucket, is not a real magical lion.
He's just a young kid with braces.
The disillusionment is instantaneous. Corvo is confronting the complex, often disappointing reality of Earth, where idols are frequently just normal, flawed people.
And nature is messy. It contains protected species that halt construction. He cannot reconcile the manufactured perfect ideal with the grubby reality.
And what does Corvo do in response? Does he adapt?
He doesn't adapt to Earth's reality, no.
Yeah.
He retreats to his lab, he uses his quantum injector, and he creates his own perfect, Australian-accented, superior copy of Fun Bucket.
Who immediately starts surfing and building a giant homemade roller coaster.
This is the ultimate synthesis of the student's argument. It's the core of the alien mindset.
If reality, whether it's the natural environment with inconvenient bats or a disappointing celebrity, is difficult, messy, or demands adaptation, you don't adjust your expectations.
No. Instead, you use technology and control. The excavator, the manipulated survey, the quantum injector, to create a perfect, instant, manufactured, and controlled reality that conforms exactly to your desires.
The urban mindset, as Kesser and Steen diagnose it, demands the convenience of the suburbs without the inconvenient, protected reality of the natural world.
And the nature driver's license, they argue, is the only way to compel the aliens to adapt before they complete the colonization and destruction of the host environment.
So, we have completed a truly extensive deep dive here, following Kesser and Steen's rigorous analysis of these land-use conflicts.
And all through the insightful and often humorous lens of stranded alien settlers.
We moved from the initial threat to specific highly protected Annex 4 species, the orchids and the water salamanders.
To detailing the systematic, tactical, and potentially illegal practices surrounding those species, including the nighttime felling of bat nests and the manipulation of survey timings.
And we expanded the scope significantly to fulfill their motto, alt or verbunden.
By analyzing the degradation caused by intense agriculture, the new land conversion for massive solar cell parks, the iron fields,
And that fundamental cultural clash that necessitates the concept of a nature driver's license to bridge the gap in environmental literacy.
the core insight driving their entire analysis remains clear. The conflict isn't just a political battle between development and conservation.
No, it's deeper than that.
It is a profound clash between fundamentally different ways of seeing and valuing the land. The alien perspective is rooted in consumption, control, and immediate convenience.
The student's motto demands a view rooted in interdependence, traditional knowledge, and genuine stewardship.
As we look back at the most disturbing details they uncovered, the mysterious burning of those logs that had lain near a water hole for a decade,
And the sudden demolition of a tree full of bat nests in the dark. These acts, they speak volumes about the true, unspoken priorities of the developers.
and this raises a final, provocative thought for you, the listener, as you observe development and change in your own community.
If, as Kesser and Steen meticulously observed, production and development are so aggressively prioritized that the efficiency of a project's speed and cost appears to justify these suspect, potentially illegal acts, what does that tell you about the true value assigned to legally protected species?
If the highest legal status, Annex 4th, is so easily manipulated or ignored for convenience, is environmental protection truly the law of the land?
Or is it merely an expensive negotiable variable in the overall economic formula? And more importantly, what will it take to transform our own approach from that of a detached alien colonizer to that of an adapted, responsible steward of the hood?
It might just require everyone earning that nature driver's license.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today we are diving deep into a really remarkable set of source materials.
Yes, and they're not what you'd typically expect.
No, not at all. We're looking at the research notes of two, I'd say, exceptionally curious students, Kesser and Steen.